Oh, sorry.
She'll tell you when they're ready. Y'all know where I am?
Oh, okay.
I'll get Catherine's seat and I'll get in trouble.
Hey, buddy. Good to see you. Are we good? Okay. All right, we're going to call this Metropolitan Planning Organization Board Meeting, January 9th, 2025 to order. I remind everyone to please silence all electronic devices. Please be aware that the meeting is being broadcast. This time, I'd like to ask you to all please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Scott Black,
Here.
Councilman Lance Smith,
Here.
Mayor John Eric Hoover,
Here.
Commissioner Ronald E. Oakley,
Here.
Commissioner Seth Waitman, Commissioner Catherine Starkey, Commissioner Lisa Yeager, Commissioner Jack Mariano, Chairman Matt Murphy.
Here. Thank you. Okay, it's time for public comment. We do have someone signed up, special guest of Commissioner Waitman, Joshua. Speaker is a minor, therefore no identifying data is required. Speaker may state just their first name for the record. Come on up, Joshua.
Okay. I'm Josh Patrick, a student at Thomas E. Waitman Middle School, and I'm here to present the Josh R. Patrick Sidewalk Project, which is extending the sidewalks down Wells Road, Curley Road, and Boyette Road within the 2-mile boundary of Thomas E. Waitman Middle School, Wesley Chapel High School, and Wesley Chapel Elementary School. I have a presentation. So right here, you can see some overhead views. It shows, I tried to circle where it ends on both sides of Wells Road. So it shows where it ends on the east end, that's near the Bridgewater entrance, and then it shows where it ends on the west side of the schools, which is just after Wesley Chapel High School. I've talked to school administrators, and they think that it would be also a good thing to add sidewalks at the Wells and Curley Road intersection and the Wells and Boyette Road intersection for children who have to cross the street. Now, this picture right here on the screen says 1,000 words. Now, first of all, the student on a bike, he is riding on this gap between the road and the grass. Now, that gap, it's hard to see in the picture. It's only about maybe a foot wide. Second of all, the car swerving around him, having to go into a turn lane. Now, if someone's not paying attention, that could be a head-on collision or something worse. And then lastly, the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now, it takes one distracted driver to take out a student riding in a small space like that. And that's why sidewalks are needed. My main point is that we cannot wait for the widening of Curley Road for this to happen. We cannot wait for these sidewalks to be added. When I was in elementary school, I was within a 2-mile boundary. I rode my bike to school. But that community had sidewalks and a crossing guard. I believe that every school in Pasco County should have these, but especially Waitman Middle School, Wesley Chapel High School, and Wesley Chapel Elementary School, because that is the most dangerous one that I've seen so far. If there are any comments at this time, okay.
Yep, go ahead.
If there are any comments at this time, you can go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joshua. Appreciate that. And I think you're right. You're right on the money with that. And I know Commissioner Waitman will be following up with you.
Okay. Is
Great
that all?
presentation,
Yeah,
John.
awesome.
Good
job.
job.
Okay.
Presentation, and right on the time, too. And your picture does say 1,000 words, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, one more. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else for public comment in the audience? Come on up, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Charles Carey. I'm at 16033 Wards Court, Dade City, Florida, the Dade Incorporated limits. This concerns St. Joe Road. Within the city limits, it should be county maintained, but unfortunately it's not. We have a culvert there near 22nd Street, St. Joe Road, that was replaced, but the pavement keeps caving in or depressing. I've called the city several times. They'll look at it. They do nothing about it. This really should be maintained by the county. And you really need to widen that right away. I hope the state's going to look at that when they change the intersection between St. Joe Road and 22nd Street. So I think the county should take over the maintenance of this road. You cannot depend on Dade City to maintain this road. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anybody else in the audience? Do we have anybody online? Nope.
No, sir.
All right. I'm gonna close public comment, and we're gonna move on to action items. MPO Advisory Committee reports. Citizens Advisory Committee. Sandra Graves, welcome.
Sandra Graves, do you need my address?
No.
Okay. Somebody might want to come visit me. The Citizens Advisory Committee met on Monday, January 6th at 9:30 a.m. in the morning in Land O'Lakes. There was no public comment and a quorum was present. There were two action items that we voted on. Elections for board officers were held, and James Mallow will continue for another year as board chair, and myself will continue as vice chair. The board approved the FDOT request for an amendment to the Pasco County TIP to revise the project limits for FDOT project to resurface I-275, I-75 from Hillsborough County line to County Road 54. Staff presented reports on the US 41 State Road 54 intersection overpass PD&E study update. And a request was made by our committee to add any kind of landscaping or aesthetic sort of situation once that project gets toward building. A comprehensive operational analysis was provided by the CAC by Go Pasco, and Go Pasco also presented an update on Go Pasco's performance measures and administrative costs. And our next meeting of the MPO CAC would be held on February 5th. So that was it. It was a nice meeting. Thank y'all.
Comments? Okay, thank you. Technical Advisory Committee. Cynthia Spidell, welcome.
Good morning, Cynthia Spidell representing the Technical Advisory Committee. So our meeting was mirrored the meeting that you just heard. We basically elected our new chair and vice chair for the year. I will be the chair again for the next year, and Venkat Badakuti will be vice chair. We also had a couple of new members, a couple swap outs. City of Newport Richey swapped somebody out. And then we also voted on the TIP amendment for the section I-75 to be resurfaced. Craig Fox with the DOT came and gave a presentation of the 4154 interchange, which is obviously a really big deal and an important project for Pasco County. You are not going to be getting that presentation yet today because I believe that they wanted to present to the MPO board after they have their public hearing at the end of the month. However, we did take a good, long, hard look at the intersection and the interchange. And one of the things that was of particular importance to the Technical Advisory Committee was the lack of multi-use paths on both sides of the 54 segment. So 54 is going to be going over 41. 41 has the constraint of the train and the CSX rail line going north-south. So we wanted at a minimum to see a multi-use path on one side of the road to match the current resurfacing project. However, at most, we would prefer, in the best case scenario, to have multi-use paths on both sides of 54 because it's like 300 feet of right-of-way, and you'll obviously will have a chance to look at it yourselves. But it's really big, so it's going to be really hard for pedestrians and bicyclists to maneuver from the north side to the south side. So we feel very strongly that's very important. And also, we would like the DOT to look at some buffering opportunities and having some natural protections for the pedestrians and bicyclists on the multi-use paths. So the Technical Advisory Committee felt so strongly about this that we voted to put a letter into the record to make it official. So we're working on that, and we'll probably get that to Craig Fox at the DOT within the next week or so. And with that, that's all I had. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much. Oh, MPO is looking for a new pedestrian and a bicycle person if the young student is old enough to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody? Okay. All right, we'll move on to Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Brian Michaels?
Yes,
Welcome.
Brian Michaels, Chair. Welcome to 2025. So we did have a quorum at our meeting. We held our elections. Myself was reelected as chair, and Daisha Mitchell was reelected as vice chair. We approved all the action items on our agenda, and we did see the presentation for US 41 and State Road 54. We did write a letter of what BPAC recommends. If you want to show the current overpass that's proposed is a 2-lane overpass. BPAC is recommending that it be 3 lanes. And there is a written recommendation from BPAC with several bullet points on why we need 3 lanes on that overpass. The last item I have is for safety. So when pedestrians cross at night at intersections, it's very hard to see pedestrians, even if they wear bright clothes. And if they have a cell phone, the cell phones will have a flashlight. So pedestrians will see a car half a mile down the road, and they assume that the car can see them, but they can't see them until they're like 300 feet in front of them. So if they use the cell phone light on their phone and turn that on when they cross at intersections, they'll be much more visible, and hopefully it'll reduce some pedestrian injuries and accidents in Pasco County. And that's all I have.
All right. All right.
Thank
you, sir. Okay, then move on to our action items. New member appointments, MPO Technical Advisory Committee. Mr. Scott Perry.
Good morning. The Pasco MPO staff recommends the addition of 2 individuals to serve on the MPO's Technical Advisory Committee. The staff recommends the approval of Mr. William Toner and Mr. Robert Teft to serve as regular members of the Technical Advisory Committee. Mr. Toner was recently appointed as the Public Works Director for the City of Dade City, and Mr. Teft serves as a Senior Planner for the City of Newport Richey. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, move approval.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, new member appointments, MPO Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. This morning we have a new member appointment for the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Ms. Brittany Marins, to replace the Florida Department of Health in Pasco County. This is an at-large membership, so she is replacing the previous person that had left. Can you review and approve?
Move motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, annual membership appointments by the MPO Board.
Okay, I'm back again. Every year, customarily in January, we go through and we do our new member appointments for our board committees that we have. Each board member is designated to one of our sub-boards, such as the STPA, the TMA, the MPOAC, and the TDLCB. We can go through.
Well, you know.
If you miss a meeting,
Go where you go is where you go.
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint the members that are shown here in the memo.
Currently, the same. Okay, second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. fiscal year 2025 to 29 Transportation Improvement Program. Mr. Scott Ferry.
The Florida DOT District 7 requests an amendment to Pasco County's 2025 through 2029 Transportation Improvement Program to amend a project, and the amendment consists of increasing the project limits for a resurfacing project on Interstate 275, I-75, from the Hillsborough County line to County Route 54. The total project distance will increase from 5.9 miles to 9.8 miles, a change in length of 3.9 miles, and a 66.75% increase in total project length. And this change is being made to include all the interchange ramps in that resurfacing project. And there's a map up here in front of you where you can see the extent of the project limits. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of this item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Go Pasco updates, performance measures and administrative costs. Janina Elkin, hello.
Good morning, Janina
Morning.
Elkin, Public Transportation Director. Due to the recent changes to the Florida statute, Section 341.071, transit agencies that receive FDOT funding, FDOT Transit Block Grant funding are now required to disclose transit productivity and performance measures reports. In addition to that, also documentation related to budget and administrative cost. The required documents are included in your packet, and they will be updated and published every year, and this serves like a public announcement to comply with this requirement. And that's all from me right now.
Okay,
Any
any questions?
questions?
No action needed on this one.
No,
Okay, well, all right, thank you so much.
thank you. And then the next one too.
Next up?
Next one too.
All right, status reports.
Yes, number 8 is the.
Comprehensive operational analysis.
Okay, yes. So that's the route study that I mentioned in previous meetings. So this has been an intensive project aimed at evaluating and improving our transit system. Ryan Suarez, he's our consultant from Horn, and he has been leading this effort along with his team. They have been collaborating with our team, Pasco team, for the past year. And today, Ryan will be conducting the presentation with the final COA findings and recommendations to improve our transit system.
Good morning, everyone. Ryan Suarez with Kimberly Horn. It's a pleasure to be here. It is actually, oh, what do I got? I'm sorry. I also have slides, although this young man over here is a hard act to follow, I'll tell you that. So hopefully I can do as good a job as he did. Again, Ryan, Kimberly Horn, it's been a pleasure working with the Go Pasco team over the last several months. We have been working on what we call the comprehensive operations analysis. As Nina mentioned, it's really just a route study, an in-depth study of every single fixed route, and I'll describe what that is here in just a second, of the Go Pasco system. These are the topics we'll cover as I work through this. Important here, what is the route study? What are we doing? And really there's two parts to this that are very important. A focus on the short term. What can we do in the immediate future? This is a little bit different from what the MPO typically does, which is long-range transportation planning. What can we do within in the next year, in this case? And what can we do within the existing budget? So we're not asking for new operator positions, we're not asking for new capital or anything like that. How can we reallocate service and our existing resources to make our service more efficient? So those are the types of changes that we see typically with this type of work. There's a list here in bullet number 3 about what's all included in terms of the actual work that's conducted to get to those service changes. So why are we doing this now? Well, it's been a while. And staff does work to update, make schedule changes on a routine basis, but this comprehensive kind of holistic look, it's been a while since something like this has been taken up by the Go Pasco team. And that's where our team, as Kimberly Horn, comes in and assists and supports and does a lot of the grunt work to crunch numbers, and then decisions are made in coordination with the team and, of course, through this public outreach as well. Things have changed since 2008. There's a lot of growth in the county. There's a lot more traffic, impacts our service. It slows buses down just like it slows traffic down. Schedules really haven't been adjusted to align with traffic conditions out in the field. That was one finding, and I got some numbers to demonstrate, how that's impacted service here in a slide later on. COVID also impacted public transportation throughout the country. Everyone took a hit. Some agencies have been able to recover. Go Pasco has recovered, but not to a point where we feel they need to be. So there's some more information on that later. In terms of route timing and schedules, I mentioned that before. That's really one of the biggest things we took a look at because of the impact on traffic conditions. So what you'll see later on is a lot of schedule changes, and that's sort of a behind-the-scenes fix that nobody necessarily sees because there's realignments, there's lines on the maps, there's a lot of stuff that goes into service reliability. For those that aren't familiar with the Go Pasco service, this is the graphic. This is what it looks like today. We've got the county split into 2 parts, which is the East County, where we have 2 routes, and then on the west, we have 8 routes. There is the route on State Road 54, the connector, which connects the 2 parts, the 2 systems, let's put it that way. All of these routes operate mostly in about 60 minutes, every 60 minutes. There's really only one route that operates at a better frequency level. That's the Route 19, which operates on US 19 here on the west side of the county. That is the most productive route in the service. So I mentioned the term fixed route earlier today. What does that mean? That's a service that operates on a fixed schedule, a fixed alignment. It picks up and drops off at specific bus stop locations. So that's a little bit different from the on-demand service where folks call ahead to schedule a trip. The on-demand services that Go Pasco provides right now are really eligibility-based services. You have to be eligible based on either income levels, your age, or if you have a disability. So important here are some metrics. How many folks are boarding our buses on the fixed route and the on-demand service, and also service hours, which really is a level of service supply. So we got demand and supply here, right, in terms of trips and service hour. One metric that's very important for us in the transit industry is trips per hour, right? It's really the level of productivity. So how many folks are using our service for every unit of supply that we put out there. So if you take trips divided by hours on the fixed route side, we'll get about 7.5. Now keep that number in the back of your heads because I've got a route by route slide and you'll be able to kind of benchmark and see how well some of these routes are doing. It's part of the exercise that we take in terms of evaluating service. On the on-demand service, because it is a higher level of service, we come out to your door and then drop you off at the door of wherever you're going. It's just not as efficient. If you do the division there, it's about less than 2 per hour. What's the budget? The annual operating budget you see here. This is how it's broken out in terms of local sources, state sources, and federal sources. To your bottom left, you'll see that $1 of TIF equals $3. What Go Pasco does is leverage local funding sources in order to match state and federal sources. So for every $1 that comes in from the TIF, really that equates to $3 total for the entire operating budget, which is what most agencies do. In this case, it works out very well for the Go Pasco team and for Pasco County, let's put it that way. Okay, so we got a big table here, a lot of data. We got the routes, a description of where they operate, total trips by route, Off to the far right, you'll see that number that I mentioned, that benchmark for productivity, trips per hour. You'll see that there's some high performers, and then you've got some low performers. One of our exercises here with this study is to identify those low performers, identify where exactly they're performing well, and see what we can do with those resources, reallocate them to more productive service, or if there's something different we can do out there, right? On-time performance, I mentioned that earlier. That was really the one that stood out to us the most. There's a lot of work that needed to be done with improving the schedules. And just to set, again, a benchmark for on-time performance, we want to be within 70 or 80%. You can see that none of these routes at the time of our study or at the time of our data collection, which was a period between March and June of last year, so we covered season and out of season, they just really didn't hit the mark. We attempted to summarize our changes and convey them in a way that's just graphically just easier to understand. So what you see here in this chart, again, is every single route and the type of change that's going to be applied to each. Again, back to the schedules. Every single fixed route that we're keeping is getting a schedule adjustment. We are doing our best to maintain at least a 60-minute schedule. We don't really want to go beyond that after 60 minutes. It just becomes a much lower level of service, and folks demand just gets diminished after that. So the realignments are important because we've removed certain segments of some routes that were unproductive, and that also helps us maintain a proper schedule and stay within that 60-minute frequency that we're trying to keep to. You'll see some new routes here as well. Down at the bottom, because we are converting one of the fixed routes to an on-demand service, we've got an extra bus. We're going to assign that to a service in Crystal Springs out of Zephyr Hills. So that's a benefit that comes out of some of our work. The Route 54, we're splitting that up. Long routes are hard to keep on time. The longer those routes are, the greater the possibility of running into traffic issues, especially on that corridor. So we're splitting this up into 3 different routes, one on the east, one on the west, and then right in the center between Trinity Medical and Zephyr Hills, the park and ride at Wiregrass, we'll just have one bus operating to maintain those connections. We didn't see a lot of folks making that long trip between the 2 areas on that bus, so we think this is sufficient. The last one here, there are new ways of doing business and delivering service out there. This is where this micro-transit piece comes up. Oh, let me go back to that. And I'll discuss what that is in just a second. These are the lines on the map, as opposed to what I showed earlier for the existing service. So I mentioned the schedules and the behind-the-scenes work. This is what typically folks react to, but it's very important to emphasize here that a lot goes into developing proper schedules. If we're reliable, if we're on time, if we say we're going to be somewhere at 6 a.m. and we're there every single day at 6 a.m., folks are going to find us reliable and they're going to ride our buses. It's very important. So microtransit, as I mentioned, there are new ways for delivering public transportation service. This is somewhat of not necessarily a novelty item, but something that's being tested across the country in a variety of different ways, at different agencies, and in under different operating conditions. So what it is, it's an on-demand service, but it happens within a defined zone. So if you're within the zone, you schedule a trip, and a lot of this is technology-based. We'll come out and pick you up within the zone and drop you off within the zone. So think about Uber, but we're not going to take you all over the county or to the airport in Tampa. We're going to drop you off within that zone. So this is what we're suggesting to the team is a pilot project, and that's the way it's going to be rolled out. The thinking is the US 41 corridor between the jail and utilities all the way down to the Walmart that sits in Land O'Lakes, just south of 54. And with the pilot project, we can test demand, test return on investment, how many people are going to use it, and at what cost. And if it works, okay, then maybe we deploy this somewhere else throughout the county. I think that RFP is in the works. Tentative date, is up here as well, sometime in the fall for a rollout. So that's what we've got today in terms of COA changes. Again, what can we do in the short term? Really a system reset. That way we can set a benchmark for what we're going to do in the next 10 years. You're going to hear more about a transit development plan in the coming months. That's going to be a separate team that's working on that. But that's at that point that we can talk, or this team can talk about, you know, what more can we do beyond what our existing resources are capable of providing. So I'll open it up to questions, thoughts, concerns, reservations.
Anybody have any questions?
I do. On the micro transit, you said it's like an on-demand type, Uber type. I know they must have done it in other areas already. How does it work? I mean, you just going to a single person, or do you try and have multiple people pick up? Or how does it exactly work?
To make it efficient, this will be a shared ride, micro, or Uber trip is the way it would work. In other words, you schedule a trip, that driver's on their way, you know, across the zone, but another trip comes in, and they can make that pickup as well. So you'll share a trip with that person as well. Okay. And if they have one or more, the apps, and there's so much flexibility now with the technology, you can indicate if you need a wheelchair, you need some kind of mobility device, if you're with a second or third passenger, so that way there's occupancy that's available within this vehicle that can match whatever the request is in order to match drivers to, you know, the trip request. And again, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the different vendors that offer these types of apps, but it will be, I think, I'm not sure how the deployment will work. Sometimes the vendors come in and provide operators and vehicles and technology, or they just, in some cases, they just provide the application, the platform, and then Pasco could provide staff and vehicles. So there's, again, I think that's part of the pilot of what will work best and what would be most cost efficient. Do we do it with existing resources and just use the app, or do we just turnkey it and allow the vendors to come in and do the whole thing?
Okay. And just one other question, if I could. On the bus system we have now, we don't have a real-time app that shows the location of the buses and on our Pasco fixed routes, do we?
I'll speak.
I know we were working on it, but
Yes.
I wonder if that would help ridership.
Yes, that's the real time, and that's coming, we're expecting to have that implemented by June of this 2025. We're actually on the testing phase. We're going to start on that in the next couple months, and then we will launch the whole system, because it's not just that technology. There are other technologies that come along.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yes, we will expect ridership to go up.
Yeah, right.
Of course, yes. Thank you. Any other questions?
I said a quick question. This COA, how often is it done? Is it a set time, 5 years, or just as needed, or?
Best practices. Go ahead.
Folks, I mean, it's not a requirement.
Right.
It's not. Typically what I see every 3 to 5 years for a COA.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just thinking, especially along 54 and the way our county is growing, I mean, I can imagine it changes quickly, you know, year to year, so. Okay.
As an agency, they work regularly to adjust schedules throughout the course of the year. But again, this kind of a comprehensive look, you know, it varies. It varies by, you know, what the market tells you. And
right.
If there's a budget issue as well, sometimes, okay, at that point, an agency will say, hey, we need to take a hard look at everything because we're constrained, or we're coming into some new money or something like that. So, the TDP is something that is required every 5 years. So that's tied to some state money. So FDOT requires that you do it more regularly.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we're already down to other business.
Man.
Anybody got any other business? Anything we'd like to talk about? Next meeting is going to be Thursday, February 13th at 10 a.m. in West Pasco Government Center. No, they didn't have the minutes, so we skipped past them, yeah. Yep. All right, anything else before we adjourn? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Yeah.
and other aquatic animals. Storm drains are meant for clean. If you suspect an illicit discharge, please contact Pasco County Department of Public Works at 727-834-3611.
The 2024 Two Good Souls event, unfortunately, Hurricane took care of rearranging the way we're going to do things this year, but there are more socks and shoes needed more than ever for all the displaced victims in our community.
Two Good Souls is probably the perfect name because of the fact that we see that an effort such as this is helping us get back on our feet. It has definitely boosted their self-esteem, and I've watched their parents also become even more involved in the school when they see that a community, and especially the school, really does care about their students.
And I want to say thank you to the Board of County Commissioners, County Administrator, to the team. They have collected an enormous amount of shoes this year.
I would just say, going back to how it helps them succeed is their self-esteem. I have two good words for Two Good Souls, and it's just simply thank you. Thank you very much for what you do for our students, for our families, and our community.
With that, just a big thank you, and we'll see you all next year for the 10th anniversary.
Homelessness has many definitions, and because our funding comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD, we go by their definition. It starts with people who are literally homeless. That can include people who are living in emergency shelter,